What are you going to do on 22? Yeah, you can take an x squared out from the beginning. Now what? I took out an x squared. All I have in here is a quadratic. Well, yeah, try and factor it. Try. A is not 1, so I'm going to do a times c, that's 50. Are there factors of 50 that have to be 27? Yes, so I can factor this thing. So I'm going to do my a times c, x squared plus 27x plus 50. That factors into x plus 2, x plus 25, right? But then since I multiplied by 5, I have to divide by 5. And don't forget to keep bringing down this x squared that we took out from the beginning. Right? So now I have x squared, x plus 2/5, and x plus 5. This thing is now completely factored. I have my answers. How many answers should there be? 4. I have them all. Do you? What are they? What are my answers? Negative 2/5, yeah. Negative 5. 0 with a multiplicity of 2, because I have x squared, right? So that's really x times x, and each x is a 0. So I would write 0 with multiplicity 2. Close my funny bracket. There's my 4 answers. So if I'm going to graph this thing, I have a really nice starting point. I already know the 3 places where this thing is crossing the x-axis. I also know something about the end behavior. What are they going to do? They're both going to go up, right? So if I had to graph this, this wouldn't be so bad because I already have a ton of information. I just got to figure out what's going on in between them. Okay? Let's just try 24 because that one's a little bit interesting. Whoops. Yeah, let's take out a negative 1. And then that way, if I take out a negative 1, I have a positive 27x cubed minus 1. Then what do you do? Yeah, now I have the difference of 2 perfect cubes. What is the cube root of 27x cubed? 3x. And the cube root of 1? 1. So now I just pop everything in. Now, don't forget I took out a negative 1 from the beginning. So I'll have negative 1. And then if I plug this into the formula, I would want a minus b. So that's 3x minus 1. Then I want a squared, 9x squared, plus bx. Plus bx, plus ab, plus 3x, and then plus b squared, plus 1. Now, so there it is factored, but I want to solve. So when I solve it, what happens to this negative 1? Well, remember, when I am solving, I'm replacing the y with the 0, right? So this whole thing is equal to 0. So what can I do with this negative 1? You can just divide it away. You don't need it anymore. You can't do that when it's a variable. Because if it's a variable, I don't know if it's 0, and I can't divide both sides by 0. But I can divide both sides by a negative 1. So when you're solving, right, I don't even really care about a number that I pulled out from the beginning. It doesn't have any bearing on my solutions. Does that make sense? So I can just divide both sides by that negative 1, and I don't really even care about it. Now I'm going to get an answer from this thing, though. What would that be? 1/3, right? So one of my answers, I'll put it over here, is a positive 1/3. How many answers am I supposed to have altogether? 3. There's one of them. You're going to get the other 2 from this, because this thing is a quadratic, right? So this thing, oops, I didn't mean to cross that out. This thing has 2 answers. How are you going to get them? How are you going to solve this and get the 2 additional zeros out of that thing? Yeah, I mean, try and factor, but it's not going to work. So you got 9 factors of 9 that have to be 3. There aren't any. I would not complete the square here. That would be a nightmare. Let's do quad formula. Hopefully you remember it. Write it down and see if yours matches mine. Does yours match mine? I hope I can fit this all in here. Let's just list A, B, and C so we're all on the same page. A, B, and C. What's A in this thing? What'd you say? 9. What's B? 3, and C is 1. Okay, so now I just got to plug in all the pieces. So that'd be a -3 plus or minus 3 squared minus 4 times 9 times 1. And the whole thing is over 2 times A. And now it's just a matter of, can you evaluate this correctly? Let's see. That's going to be 9. And then when you multiply -4 times 9 times 1, you get out -36. All over 18. All right, let's see, I'm running out of paper, but I can try and make it work. So that'll be -3 plus or minus the square root of 9 minus 36 is -27, right? And it's all over 18? Yeah, thank you. Now I have to handle this square root of -27. So I'm just going to go over here. Square root of -27, what does that turn into? I've got a 9, I got a 3, I got a -1, so that's 3i root 3. Good. Oh gosh, I don't think it's going to fit. Let's try. -3 plus or minus, what did we say? 3i root 3 all over 18. I'm going to paper. So here's where I'm at. -3 plus or minus 3i root 3 all over 18. Is that a good answer? Yeah. If all three of these numbers have a common factor, I got to reduce by it. Do they? Yes. Reduce everybody by 3. So now that answer is really -1 plus or minus I root 3 over 6. Sorry. How many answers is that? That's 2. So for my final answer, remember I already had 1/3, and then I have these two. -1 plus or minus I root 3 over 6. I was supposed to have 3 answers. There they are. 1, 2, 3. So what do you think? Easy enough? It's just you got to be decent with your factoring skills, and you got to remember how to use complete and square quad formula if you have to. Want to try one more? Why don't you try 23 without me saying anything? Make sure that when you get your answers, you ask yourself, do I have the right number of answers? Okay, ready to try? So this one, what do you notice you can do? Yeah, we're going to take an x squared out of this whole thing. That should make our lives easier. So there's 5x squared minus 26x plus 5. You already have 2 of the 4 answers, don't you? Yeah, once you take out that x squared, that means 0 and 0. There's 2 of your 4 answers. You just got to get the other 2 from here. So you have to solve this thing. So either do factoring if you can, quad formula, complete the square. Can you factor this one? Yes, you can. A is not 1, so you got to do A times C. Are there factors of 25 that add up to be negative 26? Negative 25 and negative 1. So I can factor this one. If you didn't realize that and you just did quad formula, so what? You're still going to get the right answer. You just did a little bit more work than you had to. So I'm going to do A times C. So there's x squared minus 26x plus 25. That factors into x minus 1, x minus 25. But then I have to divide by 5 because I multiplied by 5. Don't forget about this x squared that just keeps coming along for the ride. So I've got x minus 1/5 and x minus 5. Now I have all 4 answers just by looking. What are they? 0 with a multiplicity of 2, positive 1/5, and positive 5. There they are. That one's not so bad. If you can factor all the way, oh, it's a happy day. All right, we feel goodish? Yeah? Okay.